So far this year, I have made $17,080 working as a freelance consultant, pretty much exclusively on the weekends. So in this video, I want to break down how I got my first few clients, how I wrote my first business proposal, and then how I'm doing my accounting for my LLC. If you're new here, my name is Liz. I'm a data science manager at Intel, but on the side, I do run a software consulting business. So if you're interested in seeing software tools, business, stuff like that, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, let's jump into it. Now, I've got most of my clients through 3 different ways. One is old school networking, just going out, meeting people, saying that you're doing business, and then also on YouTube, as well as through Twitter. Now, my main client right now is a painting contractor. Now, I did meet them through networking and just chatting around, talking about what I do for work, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I would have landed that job without having a backfill of YouTube videos. So if you get anything out of this video, is to start a YouTube channel, show your work, just so they can look and watch them. So I feel like if they didn't go and see my work online, they probably wouldn't have thought I was qualified enough for the job. A different client actually reached out to me through Twitter, but they found me through my YouTube channel. So again, with the YouTube, just showing your work, putting yourself out there, and then also having social media apps so they can message you. Now, when it comes to business proposals, the first thing you need to wonder is like, what are you actually going to be doing for a client? So I'm doing software consulting, and I know for a fact that he wanted to have BambooHR and also SharePoint, because he was saying that he wanted to have an HR system, and then he also wanted to have a site for training. Now, he didn't actually name SharePoint. I thought, oh, that's a really good app to use. So that's part of the software consulting, is saying, hey, I think you should use these 2 apps. This is why, all that, and then wrap it into a proposal. Now, I do want to give you a glimpse of how I made my proposal. So I actually make all my proposals through Canva. Now, you can just type in Canva through the templates. You can say business proposal, and then you'll get a bunch of different proposal vibes. Now, this is the vibe I went for, and then you can pick your brand colors and all that, but I was trying to, just rip it off, as fast as possible. I never had made a proposal up until this point, but I think it turned out pretty well. So I like to do a cover page, pretty standard, date, who was prepared by, all that stuff. And then I have like an About Us page. So I'm doing this with my friend Max, who also happens to be kind of my business partner. So I'm the main contractor, and then I'm subcontracting to him. So my LLC pays his LLC. It's a whole thing. So I wanted to make it kind of fun. That's why I have the pop of color. And then I have, what are we doing? And then I like to throw on project tools, right? I'm probably gonna be using BambooHR, SharePoint. Make is an automation software. So I just like to throw that on there just to make it very clear what we're doing. Now, I like to put on a timeline. Now, this doesn't actually even tell you like how many weeks or so. This is more like hours. I'm doing an hourly basis. Now, you could just give them a lump sum and say, you know what, I'll do this project for $7,000, right? But I like to show backup, because I want to be able to back into it, and I want them to see the logic. But again, that is personal preference. Like, how are you running your business? I decided I'm okay with them seeing my breakout of hours. I could have just said, it's total 64 hours, blah, but I like to break it down. Like 16 hours, I'm gonna do some research and blah, 24 hours to set everything up, another 16 hours to integrate some things, maybe 8 hours to review it. So they can clearly see I'm not trying to like gyp them on anything. I'm all about transparency, and that's how I'm running my business, but you might not do that. So it really depends on what your business does and how they interact. So then I throw together an estimate, right? I take my hours, multiply it by my hourly rate. Right now I'm around 110. That may go up, it may go down. It really depends on the type of project and how many clients I have. Like, it really, really depends. And then I like to throw in usual working hours. So it's very clear that I'm not working Monday through Friday on the weekdays, because I have a full-time job. So I'm doing this on the weekends. Maybe I'll throw in a couple hours during like work days, I guess, like evenings, but typically I was pretty much staying consistently Saturday, Sunday. Now, one thing I did mess up on when I was actually doing consulting is I didn't actually meet with them prior to see what kind of software they had. I was going off of words, emails, right? It's very different than once you get on their computer and go, oh, they don't actually have this and that. So there was a point where there was a little bit of a scope creep because I assumed that they had Microsoft 365 set up. So then I actually added that on, even though I didn't have it in the actual proposal. So you have to be very careful. If I were to do it again, I would do an hour consultation for free and just to go into their stuff and just validate that what they are saying is what they really mean. Now, what I just showed you was one of 3 proposals. So that was like $7,000, but we ended up adding a couple more proposals. They look almost identical, just with different software, but we ended up charging the client about $16,720 to do all the projects combined. What I actually offered was first to migrate them off of GoDaddy. That was kind of a shock because I did not know that they were using GoDaddy webmail. So we had to migrate them off of webmail, put them on a Microsoft 365 business plan, and then set up a custom SharePoint site, and then add on all this BambooHR, get that set up so their HR system's all automated, and then finally integrate it all with Indeed because that's what they're using for hiring and making sure that they're all talking to each other. Now, for my second client that I worked with this year, it was much smaller, I will say that, but I ended up charging them $360 to basically customize a ghost theme. Now, this was the Ali Abdal theme, but it is a ghost theme, and then I had to actually use VS Code to open it up and then change some of the code, customize it a little bit, and that kind of stuff. But it was a smaller project, so I did it solo. I didn't have Max help or my business partner help. I put it in quotes because he's also like my best friend. So I didn't have help on this one. I just did this one straight because it was a pretty simple one. It still took several hours, but it was not nearly as large as my other client. When it comes to accounting, you want to start thinking about how you want to be paid, right? So you need to start thinking in your head, you're going to invoice them, but how much are you going to invoice them? Like if it's a $16,000 project, you're not going to invoice them $16,000 up front, and you definitely don't want $16,000 at the end of the project because it could take months. So you have to think like, okay, do I want a 10% up front and then paid monthly? Do I want 10% up front and then 90% at the end of the project? So just think about these things. If I were to do it again, I would do 10% up front and then be paid monthly by the hours I spent in the month. That is not what I did because I didn't know really what I was doing in the beginning. So I did 10% up front and then I'm gonna charge 90% once I'm done. That's fine for smaller projects. I got in over my head because I thought it was a smaller project and then it kept adding and adding and adding. So then I ended up like just waiting all this money towards the very end. So I will invoice them like at the end of May to get the rest of the money. But if you're a small business and you're doing this software consulting and all this, you need to be using QuickBooks. This is what I use. It's not, it's like the standard. I'm not trying to like say, oh, you have to use the software, but I'm just saying it's so easy. I think I pay like $20 a month to keep it maintained. I run it through my LLC, and then I just add my accountant in there at the end of the year and he does all the taxes and everything. Now I am running a single member LLC that is very specific, so just make sure that you check with your accountant and all that stuff. So I am in QuickBooks right here. Now this is what it's gonna look like when you're in invoices. So I send any client, any customer invoices through QuickBooks. It's so easy to create an invoice. You can see that all mine are deposited and done, except for this one right here, because I just sent that today because I'm going to a trip to Japan, so I needed to get that money in before I left. But you're essentially going to click create invoice. Once you set this up, you're gonna need an LLC and set it up, link it to your EIN number, all that stuff. Different video for that. I will film a separate video. But creating an invoice, super easy. You just add a customer, you can add a new one, and then all you need is a billing information, you need a billing address and a name, and I would suggest putting in an email. It's that simple. So you can see I have a couple in here, like I have Ghost because I get money from them as well, Port of Portland, She Codes. It's very simple. And then once you select who your person is, then you just tag, okay, is it a service? I put services, and then I put like, whatever it was, 360 bucks, bam, and then you just review and send. It's that simple. Now, what it does is it sends them a link, so it'll send them all these options, so they can pay with a credit card. It's so simple. QuickBooks Intuit does take a percentage fee, which I'm fine with. I mean, you can't really get around fees. So just keep that in mind because they are gonna take, I think it's like a 2 to 3% fee. It's processing fee is what it is, but it's so easy to use this software. I just highly recommend it. People can type in their credit card information, they can pay you with PayPal, and it tracks everything, and then you can categorize it as income in QuickBooks. So this year I pulled together $17,080 just up until this point. I haven't finished the year, obviously. Now I did split the first project pretty much 50-50 with Max. So as far as profit goes, from the 17,000, I'm actually profiting 8,720. Now you have to remember, I haven't paid myself yet, but that's how much money would be considered profit because I pay off, you know, subcontractors, AKA Max, and then other things that I use, which I didn't use any subscriptions. Anything that was subscriptions, the company pays for because it's not my company, you know? So I didn't actually use anything other than like my brain and like manual labor in order to run this. So that's why you see the profit at 8,000. I hope this gives you an idea of what it's like to start a consulting business kind of from scratch. I mean, you're seeing me doing this completely from scratch. I'm using different tools like Canva and QuickBooks and all that. But hopefully this gives you an idea of like, okay, it's not that difficult. I mean, it seems kind of complicated, but I will also link up here how I set up my business because I did it in a very specific way. Like I have a single member LLC, I have an EIN number, you have to link it to a bunch of stuff. It's kind of complicated. When I was first starting out, I was like, oh my gosh, such a headache. So I will link it up here, and I also have a course on it as well. So I'll link everything below in the description. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.